This is the second part of flight attendant discussions. So I'm going to continue talking about emergency situations. Perhaps the worst, or certainly one of the worst situations, is a terrorist attack. Terrorist, T-E-R-R-O-R-I-S-T. We have all seen the video from 9/11, and we know what can happen when terrorists take control of an airplane. So this is extremely unlikely to happen to anyone, but if suddenly one of your passengers threatens you with a knife or a gun or some other weapon, what are you going to do?
First, I will stay calm, and I will and I will take off my courage. And if I see the opportunity to run away from him, I will take that moment to escape.
Right, okay, well, this flight attendant, or my student, hasn't yet been taught how to deal with this situation. I'm sure airlines will have a standard procedure for this, and I don't think it will exactly follow what my student thinks. She's right, I believe, in saying that the first thing is to remain calm, but I don't think it would be a good idea to try to run away. Remember that the flight attendant's main duty is to take care of the safety of the passengers. So she must try to think of what would be the best thing for the passengers, and I'm sure the advice given by the airline is going to be to follow the terrorists' instructions and speak with the captain or other senior people if she has the opportunity. But I think in no way should she try to fight or run away from the attackers. Nowadays, of course, on a lot of international flights, they have air marshals. These are like policemen who will often, I think they carry a gun, and the flight attendant may not know who this person is because they often travel incognito. Perhaps the more common emergency situations are regarding problems with the aeroplane, such as rapid decompression or engine failure or fire. So how does the flight attendant respond in these situations? Normally, of course, if there is an emergency such as rapid decompression, the oxygen masks will drop from the overhead compartment. And what does the flight attendant do then?
I think I have to walk around to check people whether they put oxygen mask already, and make sure that the passenger who come with children, they have to put the mask on the face before put the mask for children.
Correct. That was very good, thank you, student. So look around for passengers who are having difficulty putting on their masks, and make sure that people with children attend to themselves before their children. It is important that the adult looks after themselves first. If they don't do that, they may not be able to look after the kids. And of course, in this situation, people will have already been asked to put on their seat belts. And in a real serious situation, they may be asked to get into the emergency position. If there is danger of a crash, then passengers will be asked to assume the brace position. There are two positions, either putting your head down between your legs and holding your shins, S-H-I-N-S, or leaning forward and putting your head on the seat in front of you with your hands between your head and the seat. And finally, of course, you may well be asked to put on a life jacket, and at the beginning of all flights they will show a video of how to put on a life jacket. Because most passengers don't expect the plane to crash, they may not pay much attention to the flight attendant demonstrating how to put on a safety life jacket. So again, the flight attendant may have to walk around helping people to put on their life jackets if she should ever be so unlucky as to encounter this dreadful situation, which I'm sure you will not. A couple of other things in an emergency, such as a plane crash, you will be asked not to try to take your carry-on luggage with you, for obvious reasons, because many people will be trying to get out of the plane at the same time, and if you try to carry your luggage with you, this is going to create a blockage. Of course, at the beginning of every flight, the flight personnel will give a demonstration and instruction for all these safety procedures in the event of an emergency. Let's now talk about some more humdrum problems. Humdrum, H-U-M and D-R-U-M. Problems, for example, with passengers who don't want to turn off their phones, mobile phones or computers during takeoff and landing, and don't want to put their carry-on baggage in the overhead locker. I remember a few years ago a big story about a woman with an expensive Gucci bag who insisted on keeping the bag by her feet, and there was a tremendous argument between her and a flight attendant who insisted she put the bag in the overhead locker, but the woman totally refused, and in the end she was asked to leave the plane. So here's a question for my student. Actually, I'm going to role play this. I'm going to be a passenger with a bag which I don't want to put in the overhead locker. So what will my flight attendant say to me?
Sir, may you please take your bag on the overhead bin, and it will be safe for your bag, and I'm sure that your bag will not damage.
Let me just correct my student. She should have said, please sir, could you put your bag in the overhead locker? It will be quite safe there. And maybe she could have said, this is a regulation, or maybe this is a safety regulation. But I'm going to be a very disagreeable passenger, and refuse. I'm going to say, no, I have some very important stuff in my bag and I prefer to keep it by my seat.
I'll say, sir, I have to insist to say that you have to put your bag on the cabin locker. This is the regulations of the airline.
So I'm sorry sir, but this is a airline safety regulation and I have to insist. I think you are mostly unlikely to have this situation. When I have heard stories of problems with passengers, it's often because they are drunk, maybe even before they get on the plane. But very few people are going to argue with the flight crew, so I think you need not worry about this too much. I have just been discussing with my student some kinds of problems she may encounter on an airplane and how to deal with them. The example she gave me was, suppose we have a passenger with very smelly feet, smelly, SMELLY, and the passenger next to him or her cannot put up with this horrible smell, so they want to change seat. Well, I think first of all, you cannot really say to someone with smelly feet or bad breath or some kind of personal hygiene problem that they are smelly. I think this is not going to be acceptable. I think we just have to put up with this, and after all, it's only a few hours on an airplane. But from the point of view of the passenger sitting next to this person, I think it's okay to say to them, yes, there is a vacant seat in another part of the plane they can move to, but if there is no vacant seat, then I think you can only say, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about this. This is the kind of problem I would put under the umbrella of common sense. You're going to have to use your common sense in the job of flight attendant and every other job. You're not going to find a rule for every situation, and as long as you have good communication skills, you are patient and a good listener, I'm sure you will easily find a solution for these problems. I think patience and being a good listener are very important. Listen very carefully to what your passenger has to say. Make sure you understand the situation. Then if you still cannot think of a solution, maybe speak with another member of the flight crew to get some advice. But most of the time I think you will easily be able to deal with this kind of situation. Passengers are going to have different needs. They may require vegetarian food. They may be Muslims who want to pray at certain times. And just listen to them, understand them, and make whatever suggestion you can. If a Muslim wants to pray, for example, there may be a space at the back of the plane where they can stand or kneel. But I think you cannot be expected to provide a space if it does not exist. When passengers enter the plane, they will normally be directed to their seats by the flight attendants. If you're dealing with unattended children, then you may want to take them to their seats. But most passengers using their boarding pass can find their way to their own seats. This is the final part. My student is concerned about things like social stereotypes. How, for example, we think that people from certain countries or cultures behave or think in a certain way, and whether this should affect how we behave in our jobs. Well, I think mostly cultural stereotypes are wrong. We cannot expect people to behave in the way following the stereotype. For example, not all Americans speak loudly and are very bad-mannered, and not all French people smell of garlic. I think you need to use your own common sense and powers of observation when you're dealing with people. Observation is probably your most important tool. Try to forget what you have learned from the media or your own experience and judge this new situation entirely based on what you can see in front of you. If you follow this rule, you should be able to respond intelligently and correctly in most situations.